boys and girls. Wanted to talk to you tonight for just a few minutes about the books that I've written that are actually for children. And they are about the environment. We talk a lot about the environment. We talked about Earth Day and celebrated Earth Day. And I wanted to talk to you about some of the animals that we are losing, and that's what my books talk about. And so down here in front, you can see we have my buddy the polar bear. We have an Arctic fox over here, which is a beautiful animal. We have the brown bear. We have some animals in front, the big cats. The lion is down there. Up here, we have some of the sea animals that are endangered, including the sea turtle right here in front. And over here, we've got, again, the Arctic fox, again, the polar bear, reindeer, and I just wrote another book where we talk about how we're losing our reindeer. We've got the walrus, beluga whale, the blue whale, the orca. So we have a lot of our creatures that are not extinct, which means they aren't gone forever, but it does mean that we're losing them, and we need to be careful about how we treat the environment. So I've written two books. One is called Adventures on Pink Unicorn Planet, which I've talked about before. And I just wrote this one, Adventures on Crystal Water Planet. And we'll put something up on the screen later that tells you where you can get these if you're interested in them. But I thought I would just share a little bit from one of them. This is the first book. And in the book, the premise is that three children, Josh, Greg, and Deanna, build a rocket ship and take their rocket ship to different planets. And on each planet, they help people help the environment based on what the three kids have learned from their time on Earth. So let me read just a little bit. This is The Adventure Begins. It didn't seem possible that their rocket ship would actually work, but Josh assured them that it would. We just need our folks to say that it's okay to try it, he said. In fact, their parents had all agreed to the experiment, and the kids were eager to get started. Josh's two best friends, Deanna and Greg, had parents that were involved in the space program just as Josh's parents were. Secretly, the parents never really believed that the small ship that their children had built could even leave the ground, much less make it into space, but they wanted to support them. They knew that their children were very smart and knew an awful lot about rockets, but this they thought was impossible. They thought it was a little funny that the kids thought they were going into space in their little rocket, but they were also a little sad to know how disappointed the kids would be when they counted down and nothing happened. Liftoff was set for that afternoon, and while the other two were worried, Josh still said that the ship would do exactly what they wanted it to do. Josh seemed so sure of himself that Deanna and Greg couldn't help but be excited along with him. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the three kids met in the field beside Josh's house. The ship could barely hold the three of them, plus the few things they would need on their trip. Food was a must, of course, along with water and warm clothes. I sure hope you know what you're doing, said Greg, a little worried. Hey, you helped build this ship, said Josh. Do you think all of that work was for nothing? Greg just frowned and settled into his seat, fastening one of the belts they had put into the ship for safety. After all, it was sure to be a bumpy ride if it ended up being a ride at all. Deanna seemed a little more positive. Don't be so grumpy about this, she said a little nervously. Let's settle in and start the countdown. With Josh at the controls, they could hear the sounds of the ship getting ready to take off. Go ahead and count, shouted Josh above the roar that kept getting louder. 10, 9, 8. The ship's roar got louder and it began to shake. It sounded a lot like the noise the trash men made when they were emptying the cans on Monday mornings. 7, 6, 5. The ship seemed to lift just a little bit off the ground. 4, 3. Now it felt like they were floating just above the ground, and the rattling sounds were going away. The children felt like they were leaving their stomachs on the ground below, and their hearts were beating fast with both nervousness and excitement. 2, 1, blast off. Now the ship was really going up, straight up and very fast, and the kids were being pushed back further in their seats. It's happening, it's really happening, yelled Greg excitedly. Wow, I knew we could do it. The other two just shook their heads, trying not to laugh at him, but secretly very excited themselves. The few windows they had built into their ship were small and didn't give them much of a view, but that didn't seem to matter. The important thing was that they were moving up into outer space. "We're still on track to go where we planned, right?" asked Deanna. They weren't sure of the planet's name, but they knew they could walk on it and breathe on it. Professor Jameson at the observatory had been sure of it, and it looked so beautiful through the lens of the telescope. Yes, declared Josh. "I put the numbers into the guidance system. You might as well get some sleep. We won't be there for several days." That seemed like a good idea, but it was not as easy as it sounded. Deanna couldn't get her mind off of the excitement of the trip, but she was also concerned about her mom. Her mom worked for the space program and knew only too well what could sometimes happen to rocket ships in flight. Would she be worried? Deanna didn't think there was any way they could let everyone back on Earth know they were okay. Greg, meanwhile, was also excited about that trip. He didn't think his mom and dad would worry about him too much. They always seemed so busy with his baby brothers. He had been excited to have twins in the house, too, but his parents couldn't seem to think about anything else. And now there wouldn't be anyone to bug him about changing his underwear every morning or brushing his teeth. In his mind, this was a good thing. Josh knew his dad, a computer expert, would be more than surprised that their ship actually left Earth. He trusted his son and knew he was smart, but Josh was pretty sure that his dad didn't really believe they could do it. He hoped his dad would understand why Josh felt he had to take this trip into space. He also hoped his dad would be proud of him. Before long, all three travelers were asleep, each one lost in their own dreams. The ship kept its course, heading straight to the mysterious planet, thanks to Josh's skill. He was the last one to nod off to sleep after once again checking his numbers. The days were long, and the nights were for dreaming about strange planets and space. Much later, the sound of the ship changed, and the kids heard the beginning of the roar they had heard when they were blasting off. They all tried to see out the tiny windows, but it was too bright to look for very long. They felt the ship begin to slow down, and then it began to slowly sink until it landed on something solid. The ship made jerking movements as it settled onto the ground, tipping only a little before it became still. Josh had guided them well, and now the real adventure could begin. And so once they're on this planet and walking around, they discover that of all the things, these people have unicorns on their planet. Not just any unicorns, but pink unicorns. And they have to try to help the people on Pink Unicorn Planet learn to appreciate their unicorns and to save them before they lost them all. So that's Adventures on Pink Unicorn Planet. And I wanted to tell you before we go tonight, I picked up something today. These are milkweed seeds. And let me see if I can put them here so the camera can see them. I will separate, I dropped them. I will separate what looks like silk and floss from the seeds, and I will plant the seeds and get them ready to, I think there's another one stuck in there, get them ready to be put outside in the spring. And you know who particularly likes milkweed? Are monarch butterflies. And monarch butterflies are something else that we know are endangered. So we want to encourage the monarch butterflies and the bees. So think about some of the things that you can do. And in the back of the book, it actually does, I do say, what can we do to make it better? And there are things like conserve water, things that we've talked about before. Conserve water, recycle, build a butterfly garden. Planting milkweed seeds is one thing that I think I could do to help. So it's our earth and we need to love it and take care of it. And I love you guys, and 143, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.